morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. You are here. If you're viewing us, Detroit Black and White, we're here at McShane's on the corner of Michigan and Trumbull. Adolph will be zooming in. He's out traveling, but he'll be zooming in. But we have Jim Nardone. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning.
And we have Allan Lengel.
Good morning.
So what we're going to ask for you to do is this. If you are watching this morning, we want you to like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share. You can catch us on all platforms. If you want to watch any previous shows, episodes, you could go on DetroitandBlackandWhite.com on our website and you can catch it all. All right, we're going to start off with outrage. I don't have one this morning. I'm just going to piggyback on you.
Kinder, gentler.
Listen, my power went out, right?
That's an outrage right there.
I live on the 21st floor. It finally came back on, but it was hot as heck. So yeah, I have to be nice today.
Okay. You don't have any energy left.
I don't have any
sleep?
Not much. Not much sleep. It was extremely hot. I was like, oh my gosh. But thank God it's back on. You know what? That brings me to, I know I said I didn't have an outrage, but people are really pissed off with DTE.
Yeah.
Wednesday, I had a fundraiser. A friend of mine in the Stepping community gave me a fundraiser. His power was on. We talked early in the day. His power was on a couple of hours before the fundraiser. The fundraiser is for Detroit. Is for Vanessa Moss, 36th District Court judge. He said that DTE came and cut his power off to cut the power on of the other neighbors, the people around the block. So we were sitting there for over 2 hours for the power to come back on. But a lot of people are complaining about DTE. So I guess a lot of people are outraged with DTE. And I don't know what's going on. I know they were talking about going up in their prices and things like that, but they've got to get better with this. They really do. They have to get better.
I agree.
Ridiculous.
I think a lot of people agree with you.
Yeah, and I think we have Sheila Cockrel. I think she's taking on DTE.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think she's taking them on because people are complaining about, the lack of service, the fact that their power go out all the time. You talk about you going up on prices, and the service has not gotten any better. It's gotten worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we're gonna go to who wants to do the outrage first?
Go ahead, Jim.
I just like to talk about Rob Parker and his all black sports radio that he tried to launch about 3 months ago, and it was unsuccessful, sadly. And his.
Did you listen to it?
I did not.
Okay, why you say
I forgot about it.
Well, I think that's probably what.
Okay, go ahead. I'm just playing. Go ahead.
So Rob Parker said, "I failed my people. I'm devastated that I couldn't deliver this for our culture." And I think that's. I feel bad for the guy because I'm not a huge Rob Parker fan, but I don't think he failed anybody. I think it's indicative of the culture we live in today, where small radio, 9:10 a.m. that Adolph was on for 7 years, right?
Yeah, we were on there for 7 years. Lord Jesus.
There needs to be a vehicle to get some of this information out. If you just watch Fox News or CNN or whichever news channel,
MSNBC,
you're not getting the truth. So the vice president spoke to CNN. I was busy that Thursday night, so I didn't get a chance. So I went home and watched it. And if you read the press, she was either the best interview in the history of CNN or she was the worst interview if you watch Fox News. It's somewhere in the middle. And some of these small groups of journalists are giving you the real information. And I just think when it comes to our show, if you want to watch Charlie LaDuff's No BS Hour. I'm sorry, not All BS Hour. I get confused sometimes. But whatever you're interested in, if you want to watch our show, we appreciate it. If you tell somebody, let your neighbors and friends know.
Yeah,
I want to ask, why do you think it only lasted 90 days? 3 months.
I think, look, I think when you have a short runway, I don't know how much funding they had, but if you only have 3 months, we started out Deadline Detroit, we had enough funding for 2 years. Okay. And it starts out slow. Nobody knows about you. You really have to work at it. And the question I have, and I never listened to it, and I think it's a great concept, is that what are you offering differently that you can't get on ESPN or the Fan or something. I don't know. If they're offering a different perspective or whatever. But when you have a 3-month, that's not a very, it's not a good run because you're gonna be burning through money in the very beginning. You're not gonna be suddenly like everyone's buying ads. I mean, look, all the stations, the TV stations here locally are cutting back. You can see WDIV has bought out. I mean, they have a rich pension fund through the Washington Post and now the Graham Holding. So they were able to buy out Bernie Smilov's contract, a 4-year contract. He was probably making at least $400,000 a year. That's a lot of money. Isn't
Devin leaving too at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think after the election.
Yeah.
And so you have to, you're guaranteed of burning. I mean, when we started Deadline Detroit, I mean, we were burning through. We had a payroll. We had a decent sized staff. We were burning through money, but there's no way you can go for 3 months and suddenly what I meant to say also is that the local stations are the local stations are, the advertising is going down. And so to get to a smaller market like that, most agencies, I can tell you, most ad agencies don't buy. They get a budget and someone says, okay, like the Detroit Tigers say, here's our budget. Go ahead and spend it how you want. Once they distribute it, most of them aren't that anxious, and some might say lazy, or some might just say they don't want to do it. Is to start looking for better platforms once they have all the money distributed. And so I don't know all their circumstances, but it is sad because I bleed every time. I've tried to support so many different publications. I subscribe to so many. I'd love to see as many outlets as possible. So it's sad when we see something, even if we didn't listen. I forgot about it, really.
But this show, the Detroit in Black and White, doesn't exist for the money. It exists for the people that are out there paying attention, and the people that are participating. This show is for you. This show is not for us. And I think that's the difference of a show like this or some of the other podcasts that we talk about.
Right. So let me ask you this: the sports show, it wasn't it sports and hip hop or something like that? They were
called it the rap.
Sports rap.
Rap.
Sports talk. Black. Okay. It's sort of urban black sports talk is how they promote it. For the brothers or something was the.
And BJ Armstrong was involved.
Yeah.
BJ Armstrong, the brother Rice star and former Chicago Bull, and I learned that when I found out that the station was going down. I didn't know BJ Armstrong was involved, as well as some other people.
I mean, we, it's hard to get the word out. I mean, we bought an ad in Metro Times, probably a $500 ad. It was a quarter page. It, as far as it ran, it probably did nothing. We had a billboard at one point for a month around I-75 and Warren, probably paid $5,000 for that. Didn't make a difference, really. So it really, stuff like that, you really have to get people on your show who are going to cause a splash. And then people are going to write about it and say, oh, I forgot about that, And so, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
It's sad. It's always sad.
Yeah, it is.
He didn't fail anybody.
But a 3-month runway is not very long, and only a 3-month commitment.
So I'm like, was it a good try? Because I'm like, it was just 90 days. What happened in 90 days?
They're trying to bring in cash, and when they're not bringing in cash,
nobody can be as instant success in this market now. Look how many podcasts there are. There's
billions, probably.
A lot of just in this town.
Right.
We've got Charlie the Duff, we've got Elric, we've got a bunch of other ones that I don't even know about.
But the only one that matters is Detroit Black and White. So we're not plugging any of those other podcasts. We're plugging this podcast.
Right.
But what is your outrage?
My outrage. I don't know if I'd say per se outrage, but I did watch the CNN interview. It bothers me when journalists and
what interview?
The interview with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. It bothers me. I'll say one thing. Kristen Welker on Meet the Press, she is very good. I think she's a little humorless, but the only thing that kind of bothers me is she's a good interviewer. When she asks a question and somebody skirts the answer, she goes, "Okay, but can you answer this?" And at some point, when they keep dodging, you say, "Okay, apparently you're not willing to answer that. don't let them slide away. And I think Tim Walz, that bothered me. How he's Mr. Homespun, Mr. Folksy, and he sounded like the slickest politician around when they asked him questions where you just say, look, I misspoke, or I was using hyperbole, or I was wrong the way I responded to that, or whatever. And he just kept, he smoothed it out in such a polished way that I thought, this guy's like
He's a politician.
He's trying to be very slick.
He's a
and
politician.
yet he's like, I speak like the average Joe. It's like, no, the average Joe ain't that slick like you.
I'm sorry. I think the
me.
average Joe can be slick.
Yeah.
But do you think it made a difference? I mean, as far as you are concerned, did
No.
it make a difference?
I mean, that interview, the whole interview, I mean, all Kamala Harris had to do was not hurt herself, not cause any damage, and I don't think she did. I thought it was fine. There wasn't any damage. My other thing is with Trump, I was reading this morning in the Washington Post.
Who's talking about him?
Well, I'm just saying
he was up here. He's the big cloud.
The abortion issue. He's trying to figure out. They know abortion is a very big issue here. So suddenly he comes out and says, in Florida there's a 6-week thing, which most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. So he said,
you're not a woman.
Well, I'm just saying. I read.
How do you know? But what you read, everything you read is not true. I guess I do have some energy.
All right, okay. Let me just finish, and then you can jump in. You're being a woman, but I'm saying he's
he's all woman. That's all woman right there.
But he's now trying to say he's like, oh, the 6-week runway is too short. They have on the ballot in Florida. Basically, Roe versus Wade said that you can have an abortion up to the time that it's not considered independent, fetus or whatever, which is 24 to 28 weeks. And so I think in Florida, they're thinking more like 24 weeks. So Trump is like, well, they're freaking out because the conservatives are like, no, the abortion, we are, they call it pro-life. They're anti-abortion. I think pro-life is a false, equivalent or whatever. But he's really struggling with it, and the party is mad at him. And I don't believe anything he says when he says I'm for abortion. He really is pro-choice.
I agree with that.
He's pro-choice, but he's been been forced to say that he's anti-abortion.
So my question is, y'all always started with the CNN interview.
Yes.
How he get in it?
Because I had two outrages.
He wants to be in.
Because you said you didn't have any, so I'm taking 2.
So I want to bring it back to the
Abortion?
No.
Or CNN?
CNN.
Yeah.
I don't think she should have done the interview.
Oh, she had to.
She didn't have to. I'm not doing it.
Get it out of the way. It's not that big a deal. You're a presidential candidate. You owe it to the public to speak out.
Listen, you had some people who said that she owed it to the public the way that whole nomination went down. So my thing is, look, we did it this way, and we're going to do it this way. I'm not doing an interview. Yeah. What you going to do about it? I'm still the nominee.
So back to Allan's candidate.
What you going to do about it?
I'm sorry, it's not Allan's candidate. The candidate he's speaking of. He doesn't want to be fighting out a campaign. He doesn't want to be campaigning in Florida. He wants to be campaigning in Michigan and Pennsylvania. He has to spend time and energy in Florida because of the Roe v. Wade issue.
Florida, I think, is in play. Whether it, it's interesting. Like Ted Cruz, they always say, "Oh, Ted Cruz his opponent is only like 2 points behind him in Texas." I don't believe that. I don't believe it either. It's always like with Lindsey Graham. They said, "Oh, he might lose. He won by 10 points." Susan Collins, "Oh, she might lose. She slaughtered her opponent." So anytime these legacy senators run and they're suddenly being challenged and they're within 2 points, I always think Ted Cruz is. I'd love to see him go, but
he's not going anywhere.
So our friend Eric is weighing in on test scores out there, and hopefully we get an opportunity to talk about the test scores in Detroit and what's going on with the math and the science and the English, and I think that's important. We probably need to squeeze that into the show at some point.
All right. Well, is it time for a commercial?
Yeah, we're going to do a break, and we'll come back. And when we come back, we'll come with our 2 guests.
neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
In the heart of Detroit, Bruce Simpson. Our city ombudsman and his team are dedicated to making your voice heard. The City of Detroit Ombudsman is a liaison between the City of Detroit and all persons who have a complaint or inquiry into the operation of a city department or the conduct of a city employee. The Ombudsman works as an independent oversight to provide individuals with an opportunity of giving a confidential avenue to address complaints. You can reach the Ombudsman's office at 313-224-6000 or email us at ombudsmandetroitmi.gov. You can also visit us at the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. For more information, go to www.detroitmi.gov and type in Ombudsman. We are here to help. In Detroit, we are all one team. When you win, we all win.
All right.
And we're back. We were back with Detroit Black and White. If you're watching this morning, thank you so much for watching. Hey, Jill, how you doing? Hey, Dwayla. Hey, D. Holly. Hey, Eric Brown. Listen, we have 2 guests here on the show. We have the former councilwoman, Sheila Cockrel, and we also have, he is such a gracious host. He lets us come here every weekend to host this show. We have Bob Roberts, the owner of McShane's. So welcome this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So there's some things that you guys want to talk about. I'm gonna let
Well,
Allan ask you the
tell us you
questions
guys are
and
talking, there's a movement to save the red bricks. We can see them from here. Tell us what's going on and why it's going on and why you guys care enough.
You talk about the bricks, then I'll talk about some of the others.
Oh, okay.
Tell our viewers
Sure.
about.
Well, good morning. It's really good to see you
Well,
guys
thanks.
and to be here.
Thanks so much. We miss you on the city council.
Oh, well, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm here and not there.
Yeah,
16 years was plenty.
yeah.
So the Save the Bricks campaign is a effort on the part of residents, businesses, patrons and employees of businesses here in Corktown to stop MDOT and the city of Detroit, well, mainly in this case where the bricks are, MDOT from taking out the bricks and making other changes to Michigan Avenue.
And why are they doing that?
Well, initially, Michigan Avenue, we should first employ context here. There's 5 major arteries in the city. There's the 5 spokes that Augustus Woodward laid out generations ago. One of those arteries is Michigan Avenue.
Okay.
So it's like it's an arterial dimension of the transportation system of the city of Detroit. MDOT and the city have decided that they want to make changes. Initially, this was being done because they were going to put in 2 autonomous vehicle lanes in the middle of Michigan Avenue and reduce the number of lanes for cars to 1 in each direction, and take out the bricks because the bricks are not really conducive apparently to autonomous vehicle activity. Well, somewhere along the line, that plan got changed without a lot of input from the community to they're going to turn it into transit lanes. So at this juncture, under Bob's leadership, we have gone to MDOT and asked them to explain why they did this plan to begin with without the level of engagement that they should have had with both the businesses and the residents, and B, how was it changed? And nobody told us that they had changed it after their so-called.
How long is the bricks? Like how I can see them here.
Right.
They start right here at Trumbull.
Our goal to them would be to fix the bricks, put them from 6th Street to 20th, the entire length of official historic Corktown. There have been bricks here off and on for years. They put them in the 1930s as the first generation of bricks that came in. That are few of them are still here.
So what was the explanation as to why there was no engagement?
Well, they will tell you they did engagement.
How so?
Well, they had some. They paired up with the city to do some engagement during the strategic framework planning process for Greater Corktown. They then did a number of online engagements during COVID. But there were very few, I mean,
Right.
Bob and I, a few others were on those calls, and there were very few people, not that I know everybody in Corktown, I sure don't,
Right.
but there were very few names that I recognized as participating in this, in these online forums. But the consultant reported out to the state that the majority of Corktown supported their plan to reduce the lanes, take out the bricks. For example, you couldn't make any left-hand turns off of Michigan, off of the side streets onto Michigan Avenue, except at signalized intersections. People in the neighborhood and people who work in these businesses don't know that. So anyway,
I live right over here. I don't know that either.
But yes, well, hopefully this plan is on hold, because Bob and others we went to the governor's, to the MDOT director's office and said, we need to understand better what you're doing.
So you call it a movement, which is interesting because I have a movement going on. You call it a movement. How much engagement do you have now that people are, because I've seen articles in the newspaper about this. I hear people talking about it now. I can tell you during COVID, I didn't know anything about it. Nothing about it. And it just seems like here lately, and I would say lately within the last month or so, that is all the chatter. So with all the chatter, is the movement getting traction? Are people really getting involved? Do you see that there may be a change in their thinking or their plan? I understand there was an article in the paper yesterday, an op-ed where this guy was talking about how this would be so beneficial for Michigan Avenue. So.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet. This must be one of the folks who want to put Michigan Avenue on a road diet.
Right.
This notion of road diets that's running around the state. Could you see
what
it
does
all
that
over?
mean?
Yeah.
What is the
Reducing
road
the number of lanes for cars.
Oh,
This is basically a structurally anti-car agenda. Not in my opinion, an agenda that says let's share the road. It's like let's make it less likely that people will use cars. The problem with this idea, that's why you see all these bike lanes, all this elaborate stuff. This is not Beijing. People do not ride bikes as a part of how you live your daily life.
Right.
Maybe we'll get there someday.
Particularly in the winter.
Yes.
Right.
How do you do this in the
Right.
winter? Maybe someday we'll get there, but in the meantime, and certainly in the city of Detroit, the state of Michigan, cars are fundamental
Right.
to the structural economy. So how you treat vehicles becomes a really important dimension to what any road should look like.
And the autonomous vehicles, are they heavier? Is that what the issue?
The autonomous vehicles are these vehicles that don't have a human in them.
No, I understand
Yes.
that, but I mean, in terms of the brick, are they too heavy? Is the brick not structurally sound enough for an autonomous vehicle? Because I know electric vehicles are
Right.
heavier cars and do more
Right.
damage
Well,
to the road.
the impression we got was never entirely clear that they were going to be putting something into the roadway to be part of the movement of the autonomous vehicles.
Is that like chargers or something? Or?
Yeah, I never was clear. That plan got dropped because apparently autonomous vehicles have fallen into disregard because people in San Francisco were getting hit by the vehicles, etc.
Right.
Right.
Now the focus is eventually going to turn to electric vehicles.
So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I would ask you this. Given that they had these meetings during COVID, and I drive up and down Michigan Avenue almost every day, it's in great disrepair. You got a big old dip. I mean, I could tell you where the dips are.
Sure.
Do you think that they really decided that we're not going to fix it because we're going to force them into this change is going to come? Do you guys think that happened?
Well, Bob, answer that. And
Yeah,
also,
I'm not sure that there was a conspiracy theory or anything like that, because originally, as it was presented to us back in 2019, it was actually going to be an 8 to 80 study that they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was your 8-year-old child or your 80-year-old grandmother, what would make you feel comfortable with them traversing Michigan Avenue by themselves? So we were looking at things like improved landscaping, canopy trees, which naturally slows traffic, expanded sidewalks for cafe seating for the businesses, bump outs at the intersections, maybe even or some mid-block crosswalks, so you didn't have to walk as far to get to a crosswalk. Areas of refuge in the center in case you didn't make it all the way across the street in the cycle of a light. So that originally that was the original engagement that we had with MDOT and the city. And then it during COVID, as they started to do these online engagements and brought in Cabinet to assist them in the engagement, is when it switched to these dedicated transit lanes in the center. And there's just so many negative consequences for both the neighbors and for the businesses. And I've stated this before, that everybody assumes that because Corktown is a booming city, booming neighborhood rather within the city,
Right.
that all the businesses, all the small businesses are doing well. And that's just not the case. I'm also president for the business association, and I've got a real good pulse.
Okay.
And I describe the businesses in Corktown as still being fragile. And between being having construction out in front of our business for 2 years, which we understand. Obviously, there's no business in Corktown that you could ever say is anti-development with everything that we've went through over the last couple of years. But between that and then once we do get to the finished product, to have a finished product where we lose 63 parking spaces, where there's already a parking deficit in Corktown. We have one lane of traffic in and out of town, which, I mean, when these studies were done, a lot of these businesses that are open now, like the Godfrey Hotel, Perennial, they weren't open then.
Not open, yeah.
The
Train
train
station.
station is still not occupied.
Right.
Now we've got DCFC and their soccer stadium coming to Corktown right on Michigan.
Which would be a
Avenue.
nightmare to have less.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And then the other thing, like Sheila was pointing out, you can only turn left off of Michigan Avenue at signalized intersections. All the feeder streets, you can only turn right. You wouldn't be able to make a left-hand turn. Can't cross over Michigan Avenue.
So the red bricks, it's more than just, I mean, you guys have some affection for the red bricks, but it's much more than that, really. Is that?
Yeah, it's the bricks tug at people's heartstrings, and as soon as I talk about, if I'm talking with a guest here at McShane's, as soon as I mention the fact that MDOT wants to reimagine and redevelop Michigan Avenue, the first thing out of their mouth, so I'm not going to do anything with the bricks, are they? And I say, well, yeah, they're going to talk about
That's
removing the
interesting.
bricks.
That's interesting because
It is the first thing they
Right.
say.
So it's a double, it's
Right.
more than,
But I
it's
mean,
the bricks and.
here's the bricks. The bricks in my mind, I grew up here many, many years ago. When you hit the bricks, you know you're home if you're a resident or you're working Corktown. If you're a visitor, you know you're here when you hit the bricks. It's one of the things that creates a sense of community, a sense of place. It's one of the things that urban planners today are supposed to be like really focusing on. Why would you take that out and homogenize this street? It's another just white bread street running through a city. It doesn't make any sense. And I think go ahead.
I've got a question. And this is an alternative that I don't know if you guys have thought of. If for some reason you lose your battle, could you take the bricks and the sidewalks?
Well, that's their plan. You put them in places where they can be like symbols of the
Right.
past.
right.
And, places where people can like, no, this used to be Michigan Avenue.
What's
They're
in-
going to keep, in fairness to them, they're going to keep bricks in two places on parts of Michigan Avenue that the State Historic Commission decided are the truly historic parts of Michigan Avenue, which in my mind is, division is an art form in this city and this region already. Why would you now find a way to divide a neighborhood further by saying, you all are historic, but the rest of you aren't? On the same street that has functioned as one community for generations. It is the oldest neighborhood in the city.
Right. What's interesting is up until a month ago, I'm like, when are they going to fix the
Right.
doggone street?
Right.
When are they going to fix Michigan Avenue? And not appreciating the historic value that these. I'm more concerned about that.
Right.
Can we smooth this out? Because I mean,
You don't wanna
it's a
hit
big
bumps.
old dip right here.
Right.
Y'all know that.
Right.
Right.
Because it's crazy. But yeah, so it wasn't until this gained traction that people can say, like what you said, that they're going to remove the bricks. Oh yeah, their plan is to remove the bricks. Like I said, I was one of those people. Just fix the street. I didn't care one way or the other until I became informed. So how are you guys getting your message out?
Well, we're doing it through real grassroots,
Okay.
petition drive.
Okay.
We have Sheila and some of her friends and some of the block club presidents have been going door to door, passing out information. We do have a meeting scheduled with MDOT on September 12th. It starts at 4:30 with the presentation at 5:30.
And where is that an open meeting?
Yeah, it's at the Gaelic League.
At the Gaelic League, right down the street.
Right.
Look, Adolph is here. So
He left.
he was here a minute ago.
So
Maybe he'll
people,
zoom back
and
in.
tell us again the date on that and the time that people can attend.
It's September 12th. It starts at 4:30. There's a presentation by MDOT at 5:30, and that's at the Gaelic League on Michigan Avenue.
Okay.
So we're going door to door with this throughout the entirety of historic Corktown.
Okay.
We're making sure the information is known to folks who live in Hubbard, Richard, and North Corktown, who, as you may recall, this was the impact zone for the train station community
Right.
benefits agreement.
Right.
Everybody who lives, North Corktown at one time was all just Corktown. Generations ago. So we want to make sure everybody who's directly impacted, including the businesses, we're passing out information in each of the businesses. So we have a QR code where people can sign our petition, read about what the position is, what positions we're taking, and sign our petition.
What's the boundary for North Corktown? Is it Grand River or?
I believe, I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I was
At one
curious,
point, I
yeah.
think it's, I think it may be Grand River. I don't know. You can check that. It used to be Grand River.
Right.
Corktown used to be.
And then you
from
go to
Grand River.
Woodbridge. Yeah.
Yes, right. It used to be up there, but I don't know what the current definition is.
Okay. And if people want, do you guys have any website or any Facebook page for this? Or do you guys have something?
They can go to corktowndetroit.biz.
Corktowndetroit.biz.
Corktowndetroit.biz. Okay. And if people want to reach out to you, are there things that people can do to help you with
Sure.
this?
Yeah, we want people to sign the petition. This petition is not limited to people who live or own businesses or work here. It's for people who care about the historic nature of Corktown, who have some view of the importance of this neighborhood as the city's oldest neighborhood and keeping its character in place.
Right.
So we want signatures from everybody. We'd like to have more than 1,000 signatures to give to the folks at MDOT in the city of Detroit.
And how about, have you reached out to the people at Ford Motor Company with the train station? Do they have any feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have representation on the Business Association Board from Michigan Central, and it's been stated that they're not in favor of the MDOT plan at this point either.
Okay.
All right. We have Adolph joining us. Hey, Adolph, how are you?
Mongo.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, you want to weigh in on this?
Listen, I like the campaign, and I hope we don't turn Michigan Avenue into Livernois.
True that.
What's wrong with Livernois?
And well, the way they redesigned that street, fire truck go down, it can't turn. I'm gonna tell you, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Corktown is,
Whatever we can do and I can do, we need to stop it.
Corktown is such a treasure. I used to think that really the main gem in Detroit being Greektown, but I think more of Corktown now as being more of the gem of the city.
Adolph, did you participate in any of the meetings beforehand?
Which meeting?
For the to get rid of basically the bricks on Michigan Avenue.
No, I haven't.
Were you
No.
aware of it?
Well, you know what? I don't talk to Bob, and I was aware of what was going on, and you got the valid arguments on the other side, but these are the same folks that said when they moved the Tigers to the new park that if you tear down Tiger Stadium, Corktown is gonna die and go away, etc. And it seems like it done got better and better every year.
Let me
So they exaggerated.
Right. Let me ask you this. You and I were talking on the phone last night. You talked about that op-ed. Could you, Sheila and Bob are not aware of that op-ed that you talked about that you talked about last night.
In the free press.
Right.
Okay.
Someone named Matt. I can't think of his last name. Daniel.
Mac Daniels. That's he's
Mac Daniels. Yeah, he's totally opposed to y'all campaign.
Yes.
And
Now,
he makes some valid points on some things, but basically he's saying leave it to let MDOT do their thing and let MDOT come in here because Michigan Avenue is unsafe and we got a lot of blind spots, and so they need to do something. And he think that y'all blocking progress.
Yeah,
Yes.
we met with Matt and several people from his group. What's the name of the group?
Strong Towns.
Yeah, Strong Towns. The business association met with him and a couple of his representatives, and I felt anyway when we left the meeting that we had a lot more in common than what we than what we disagreed on. We are all for as I stated earlier with that original 8 to 80 study. The business association is all for making Michigan Avenue safer, as long as we're able to keep our parking spots and keep 2 lanes of traffic going into town and 2 lanes of traffic coming out of downtown.
As those bricks, have they been replaced over the years, or?
Some have. They've never done a full replacement, but right now, in the most recent past, the city of Flint is spending $5 million to replace a mile worth of bricks on their main streets, Saginaw Street in the city of Flint. It is something to be done. Is it expensive? Yes. On the other hand, bricks have a life of 100 years. Asphalt has 15. So part of what we see here is there hasn't been regular routine maintenance because it is more expensive to take care of bricks. So in my opinion, just as it happened in Corktown for generations, somebody deciding to sort of let it go. We did it in the 50s when they decided Corktown was a slum and they were going to tear the whole thing down in order to put in light industrial. Residents stopped that.
right.
That mentality of sort of let it go, and then we can say we have to change it because it's broken.
Do we
What's
get
interesting-
potholes?
Pardon me?
Are there potholes in the bricks, or are they pothole free?
I don't know the answer to that.
There's not
You do need to do it.
there's not exactly what you would call a pothole, but there's definitely dips
I
and
call them that. I mean,
valleys and
huge
stuff.
dips, right.
But I can tell you that so I live in Corktown
So
and have a business in Corktown. So I am at the corner of Michigan and Trumbull and in Corktown an awful lot.
Right.
And I cannot remember in the last 12 years any work being done on the bricks at all. But I can tell you that I've seen a lot of work done on all the asphalt and the concrete streets around.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So while it may cost more to put in initially, I think that if there was a study done, about the lifelong, what it takes lifelong to maintain the bricks, I guarantee my hunch would be that it's actually would save money in the long run.
Right.
What's interesting is Adolph brought up Livernois, but one of our viewers talked about McNichols. The same thing. They redid it. The street is extremely narrow. They put these bike lanes. You have all these nice businesses, especially in the corridor from Livernois all the way down to past Wyoming. But it is really difficult driving. It's just 2 lanes, one going, west, the other going east. But it is, now that is terrible.
Right.
And
But
go ahead.
you don't have to go down to McNichols. You need to just go to Cass and see what they did to Cass. That is, I hate going on Cass anymore because with the bike lanes and whatever, no parking, and you can't. A fire truck can't get through there with traffic.
Right.
You go to when there's a concert, a Red Wing game, Piston game, on Cass Avenue, and particularly when the game lets out, it's
Right.
insane.
It is.
You can get stuck for a half hour on Cass Avenue.
It is.
And
It is.
Kirchable and Jefferson, I mean, it's everywhere.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Ferndale, they did this quote unquote road
Right.
diet between, I guess, 8 and 9 mile. I mean, first of all, the thing looks like somebody was on LSD when they do the
Yeah.
planning. There's orange and yellow and green and curves and straight.
Yeah.
What is this? I mean,
Right.
there's no real education to explain to anybody how to interpret what you see on the ground in front of you. So whoever's strategy this is has not done the kind of public engagement that they should do
Right.
about how to use it. But I don't think there's been the kind of public discussion
Right.
in the city, the state, the region, and the state. Why do we want this stuff?
Right.
And how, and like, I'd like to know, what is the data that shows the usage of the bike lanes is so great on Michigan Avenue that there should be continued and expanded investment? How much are the bike lanes actually used?
Nah,
Not just
little or nothing. Little or nothing.
right, not just Michigan Avenue,
Yeah.
Jefferson, Cass, Mac, because I go on Mac all the time to go work out. Absolutely Kirchable. And you hardly ever see anybody on the bikes.
Right.
Riding on the bikes. And it make it difficult as someone that drives.
Right.
I'm like, well, how do I make this right-hand turn? Do I get in the bike lane or do I just make this very wide turn
Right.
to go onto my street,
Good point.
go into the street
Yeah.
that I want to get on?
Right.
It's
And-
terrible.
And it's not consistent. Sometimes the bike lanes are next to the sidewalk. Sometimes they're on the opposite side of where you park. Now these bike lanes they're talking about are going to be elevated at sidewalk level. So I mean, there's also not consistency throughout the city
Wow.
with the way that the bike. Some of them are marked and some of them are marked. Some of them aren't marked. Some of them are protected by ballards. Some aren't. There's no consistency throughout the city.
I would also say then the larger question of like dealing with the effects of emissions, fuel emissions on the environment. Yes, there has to be a new approach to gas guzzling vehicles need to be changed out for electric vehicles that cost a decent price. But bigger than that, if we want to move people to mass transit, the first thing, the state of Michigan, the city of Detroit, all of the folks who want to do road diets, spend the time, energy, and money to get a regional transportation system so
Right.
that I can live in Corktown and feel at 76 years old safe enough at 6 o'clock at night to get on a bus to go downtown to come back at 10 o'clock at night. And the bus is going to be there, it's going to be safe, and I'm going to be able to get back to my house
Right.
like you can in other big cities.
Right.
So I mean, to
And
me,
we need more than just a toy train going down Woodward. We need real transportation that goes through Gratiot, Michigan Avenue, Grand River, etc. A lot of people don't drive, and just to get on the Q line to go a mile or two. It looks good. It looks good when you got visitors, just like the People Mover. It works, but we got a big problem of not being able to move people really around this city.
And we're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a commercial break, and then we'll come back. You can finish, and our guests can finish.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
In the heart of Detroit, Bruce Simpson. Our city ombudsman and his team are dedicated to making your voice heard. The City of Detroit Ombudsman is a liaison between the City of Detroit and all persons who have a complaint or inquiry into the operation of a city department or the conduct of a city employee. The Ombudsman works as an independent oversight to provide individuals with an opportunity of giving a confidential avenue to address complaints. You can reach the Ombudsman's office at 313-224-6000 or email us at ombudsmandetroitmi.gov. You can also visit us at the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. For more information, go to www.detroitmi.gov and type in Ombudsman. We are here to help. In Detroit, we are all one team. When you win, we all win.
We're back, Detroit in black and white. We're here at McShane's every Saturday from 10 to 11. If you're watching, we want you to like, subscribe, and share. You're always welcome to come down here to McShane's and participate. And for those that are participating online, thank you so much. Denzel, Kenneth, Karen, D. Holly, I know she watches every week. Thank you so much, Jill. Hey, Jill, what's going on? Thank you so much for the engagement. We're going to go back to our guest. Adolph, you was trying to, want you to finish up your thought or whatever it was that you were talking about.
No, but this campaign is important that we save something. Because in Detroit, we're known for just, we tear down buildings that we need to save. I remember reading a history book where the Orchestra Hall at one time was on the demolition block.
Right.
I see beautiful pictures of Old City Hall. Man, they tore that down like it wasn't nothing. Or you can go to Holland Park and they just let that high school just deteriorated and they built a prison-like high school with no windows. This is what we do in this city and this area. So sometimes you got to rebuild, but other times you just need to make it better. They'll fix Michigan Avenue, but not the way they propose. Just to destroy it. Right. Whatever genius came up with the idea, well, let's take the bricks up and boom. They having the same problem over in Virginia Park with the bricks. So this is just not one area. The whole city is feeling it. Bicycle lanes all over the place. And we need to make our neighborhoods safe. But who's riding all these bike lanes?
Well, you know what? The other question for me is, who is this benefiting financially? Seriously, who is this benefiting financially? Definitely not the businesses here in Corktown. Definitely not the residents. So these geniuses that came up with this idea, how much money are you getting off of this? What are you getting out of this?
I mean, who knows what the answer to that is? There's a lot. I know in the 375 project, there's people who say that if that project goes through, there's people who care about that because it's going to create 30 or 40 acres of land that can be developed, and that those developer interests are driving that process.
Uh-huh.
I don't really quite know what it is, who benefits here, to be honest with you. But I know the Business Association plays a really vital role in protecting, the commercial life of this neighborhood.
So we talked about the Ford in the train station. What has the Godfrey Hotel? Have they said anything about this?
Yeah, in fact, I was just with some folks from the Godfrey yesterday, and both the management team of the actual hotel, as well as the owners of the brand, and actually the developer, are all against the MDOT plan.
Okay.
You can come here on any time that their banquet facility is being used, and there will literally be cars lined around the block all the way down past the church, and that's with the 2 lanes and
Right.
and really taking up 3 parking spots in front as a valet lane. So you can imagine what would happen if there was only 1 lane of traffic.
Right.
It would literally Michigan Avenue would come to a stop. And the other thing that concerns us, and so if you take that scenario, then what happens is a lot of people. Corktown has always been, some people call it the front porch or front porch to the city. Right? We've always been a gateway to downtown. People come here They park because it's a little bit more convenient, although we don't have much parking left anymore. They get something to eat and something to drink because I think anyway that our restaurant scene is a little bit more approachable than what it is downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to their event downtown. They come back, they have a couple more drinks, wait for traffic to lighten up, and then they go home. So we've always had that history, in Corktown, and a lot of people get here by pulling up Waze on their phone. Well, if Michigan Avenue is at a gridlock on Waze is naturally going to redirect them somewhere else in the city.
Right.
So we're going to lose that business.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't want to go. If they'll be like, I'm going to avoid Corktown's too crazy now. I'll go somewhere else where there's less traffic, easy parking.
So, like at the macro level, in addition to the question of a viable regional transportation system, is the parking issue in Corktown. It is not new. This neighborhood was built before there were cars.
Right.
So there's a structural parking issue from jump. A small study was done. 7-page study was done a while ago. A full-blown study has to be done to address the parking needs of the emerging, burgeoning businesses and developments here, as well as protecting the parking of residents. It's an issue. The folks at New Lab, parking in the train station part of Corktown, it's on the streets is a big problem. So the city and the big developers and the state need to address the question of a parking solution, which means somebody's building garages that are reasonably priced,
Right.
and at some points free, so we just get people in them as opposed to parking in front of people's houses or businesses.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it is a problem, and I feel bad for the residents in Corktown because I walk every day, and you go through some of the neighborhoods, and you got people don't want to go in that garage across the street from the hotel, or they parking on the street. Now, if I lived over there, I'd be going crazy every day. We don't have that problem with the condos over on Woodward across from the stadiums. So there's been a problem all over downtown and in this area. So somebody got to address it. I think that your campaign has really shed a light on what's going around in the city. MDOT and whoever else think they can just come in here and move pieces.
Yeah, I always believe when you see things like this, you know what's behind it. It's the paper. And I want to know who is the paper going to. That's the bottom line. If it's not benefiting the community, bump you. Forget it. So, but we want to thank you guys for being our guests today. We got another guest that's coming on. You guys are welcome to sit in and listen. And of course, I see you every week, Bob.
Right. I'll be here for sure.
All right. Thanks so much.
We're going to cut to a break, and we're going to come back with our guest, Kristina Karamo.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
It's summertime.
I know,
All right, we are back.
Yeah, we're back. Detroit Black and White. Our next guest is Kristina Karamo, who is used to being in the news and of the news and making news. This is her second time here at the show, Detroit Black and White. Again, if you're watching Detroit Black and White, we want you to like, subscribe, and share. We thank everybody that watch every week. If you want to come down, you could come on down here to McShane's on the corner of Michigan and Trumbull. You can also come down and sign the petition to save the bricks. But and you can also come down and say, hey, I want to be an ambassador for the movement for Vanessa Moss to sit on the bench at 36th District Court. But at any rate, welcome, Kristina. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I think we're going to start this off by, I think we're going to have Adolph ask the burning question.
Hey, how you doing, Madam Chairman?
Hey, how are you, Adolph?
All right. Listen, what's going on with your party?
Well, there is definitely an internal struggle going on. You have those of us who are populist constitutionalists who want the party to be focused on serving the needs of the citizenry, protecting the constitutional rights of the citizenry, ensuring that we have a prosperous nation for all. And then you have those in the party who are a very small minority, but have predominantly of the cash, who want the party to serve the interests of a select few. And majority of us just aren't putting up with it. That's what's going on.
Listen, the rift between you and other party members, is this going to hurt you, your candidates, top down in November in Michigan?
Well, it's kind of unfortunate because these individuals really don't care. To be frank with you, I'm sure it's no secret what happened at our convention last weekend, where I was properly credentialed per law.
Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so what happened is Alexandria Taylor, who's a state Supreme Court candidate, I was part of her campaign team. She gave me a credential to be able to freely move around the convention floor to help her campaign. I had the credential per the law and per the rules of the Michigan Republican Party. As soon as I hit the floor, I was singled out and began to be harassed by the court-appointed chair security. Then after that, fellow Patriot delegates saw how I was being harassed, and they came to defend me and try to prevent them from harassing me any further. And it just was an unfortunate situation, and it really harmed Alexandria's campaign because I was unable to move about the floor to support a friend and a woman I know who have been a fantastic state Supreme Court judge. But this is what's happening.
What happened specifically?
They called the police to harass me and then remove me forcibly. There's footage. The police unnecessarily grabbed me. I tried to pin my arm behind my back, even though I was exiting per the law. But really what happened also is other people who support me have been consistently harassed. As people know with the story, the majority of the state committee wants me to be chairwoman, but a small minority, with the help of a friendly judge, claimed that even though the majority wants me to be chair, he called it sharp elbow politics. So this rift has continued. And even though when I went to the convention, I was not there for those purposes. I was there to support Alexandria because I know she would make a great judge. But instead, I was aggressively harassed and manhandled to leave the facility. And so, again, these individuals that have currently controlled the party, they really don't care if we win or lose. They don't.
Kristina, did they arrest you or?
No, they didn't arrest me. Eventually, one of the officers had threatened to mace the crowd because many of our delegates were concerned about how I was being treated. So they formed a wall around me, like, you're not going to continue to harass her anymore. And so that's when they called the police. And one of the officers had threatened to mace the crowd. Many of these members are senior citizens.
Mace the crowd?
Yeah, she threatened to mace the individuals who were protecting me. So at that point, I decided it was best for me to leave because I didn't want anyone injured. And after that, I began to leave. And as I was talking to the press, one of the officers attempted to pin my arm behind my back. And I snatched my arm, like, you're not going to just grab on me. I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm like, that's not what police are for. They're there to protect the citizenry, protect their constitutional rights, stop us from being abused, but not just harass people. And it was just a really horrible display. But many of us have decided, we have to focus on November. But this internal party struggle, it's just an unfortunate situation, and many just don't care.
So when they were harassing you, were they saying things to you?
They were the court-appointed chair, Pete Hoekstra. His goons were telling me that I had to leave, and they were telling me that I couldn't be there. They had no authority to tell me that, and I'm just not going to put up with their harassment. And that's one of the reasons why the majority of the delegation want me to serve as chair, because they know I'm not going to put up a crap. And that's just how I roll.
Right.
Do you still have the support of Donald Trump? You're supporting him.
Correct.
We knew he was going to come up.
We
knew he was going to come
you
up.
have the support of him? Have you heard from him?
Well, I haven't talked to him. The reality is that you have a court-appointed chair who, and I guess I'm court-appointed because that's not what the will of the majority. So yes, I'm supporting for president because this is not, the presidential election is not about me per se. It's about what's best for this country. And the quality of our lives were better. I mean, just look at our gas prices, our food prices. They were lower when he was president, and the high price of living has caused a significant burden on people. But I don't want the internal struggle to detract away from what needs to happen in November. But unfortunately, those in control of the party apparatus right now, they don't care. I mean, I wasn't the only person harassed, but it's just that because of my activity within the party, it was more public.
There were
But don't you think that also it has to do with you being a strong Black woman? And they wouldn't have done this to the last chair we had that was a woman. I don't think they would have done it to anybody that's been the chair of any party, escorting you out. You know, you had a right to be there, but I think that some of the people in your party, they lost their minds, and they see you as a threat, so they think they can treat you any way they want to think they can treat you. So,
you know, Adolph, I think that's a very fair question. I would say an extremely small minority of the party, of our establishment class, who are the funders of the party. I mean, I find it very interesting that you look at Bernadette Smith, who ran for National Committee woman. The court-appointed chair sabotaged her race. She's a Black woman. Alexandria Taylor, whose race was compromised because of the corruption at the convention, she's a Black woman. So I think that's a very fair question to ask. And I think possibly, yes, some of these individuals do. But I don't want people to walk away thinking that's the majority of the party. Because if people saw the footage from the convention, when Hoekstra hit the stage, I mean, he got booed so bad he couldn't even speak. So the majority of the delegation do not support their actions, but a small minority of the donor class who support the party. I mean, if you look at it, where are the Black leaders in the party, especially female?
Jim has a question for you.
I wanted to talk about your time as the chairperson. I want to go back to 2022. So I'm a very good friend of a gentleman, one of the finest human beings I ever met, that ran for state rep. And he was a common sense, right? Maybe a little farther right than I might be, but he was a common sense candidate. It just didn't seem, and Adolph may even know this gentleman, like the Republican Party was helping the common sense candidates. It's like they were trying to help the far right candidates and not the people that were a little more moderate. So,
well, I would say this. I would look at it a little differently. They don't support constitutionalist candidates. That's the way I look at it. Because to your point, that has been the problem. One of the reasons I ran for chairwoman, because I saw what was happening, that if you didn't fall in line with the donor class, then they would sabotage your race, even in the general. I watched that happen. So that's what caused me to run for chairwoman. Because irrespective of a candidate may be a little more left leaning, maybe more centrist, if they are a Republican nominee, I'm going to support them. That's what I'm going to do. That's my duty as chairwoman. And I observed to the contrary, and our delegates, the majority, the rank and file, the 99% of the party are tired of the scenarios that you're talking about.
He won the primary unexpectedly. He beat the establishment candidate in the primary, the people that the big money was supporting, and he didn't get the support that I think he should have gotten. He would have been a great state representative. What do you think, Adolph?
Yeah, he would have been. He's one of those few Republicans that I could support. You know, I'm a Democrat, but I have supported various Republicans throughout my career. People that you like, that looks out for their community, etc. But I wanted to ask the Madam Chair the question: do you think Mike Rogers has a real good chance of becoming the first Republican senator in a long time here in the state?
I do think he has a good chance. I think what the three issues on the ballot that I've really been focusing on is one, the cost of living, the gas prices, and illegal immigration. I think those are the issues that are really going to drive people out for the Republican candidates, including Mike Rogers. The cost of living is it's too high. People can't afford their basics. So many of those other issues just start to go out the window when people can't afford to live. So I think that alone will give him a massive boost in November.
Kristina, let me ask you this. The election, you know, I think Trump had a litmus test for people who he backed, and they had to agree that the election was stolen in 2020. Do you believe that? And is that divisive for your party, where people are saying Trump lost? How do you?
I don't think that's a divisive issue. The issue of securing our elections and our voting rights, it's not a partisan issue. And that's one of the things that's been very important. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is, because if we look back at it, when Garland Gilchrist ran for clerk, he had concerns. And he did challenge some of the procedures of the election. So it's not a partisan issue, but I don't think it's a driving wedge. That's not what's causing the rift in the party. What's causing the rift in the party is, as I said before, there are some of us who are constitutionalists, we're populists, and we want to make sure that the needs of the citizenry, what comes first, instead of the needs of a few. And that's the wedge. That's the wedge.
We have one of our viewers who asked a question. Fighting the Evil asked, what are your views on, or how do you feel about Jasmine Crockett?
I don't really have anything. I did watch her speech during the DNC convention.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with her policy wise, but I don't have any like negative opinion of her personally. I don't anything but just policy wise. There's definitely differences there.
All right. Now, Allan just asked you a question. I'm going to piggyback on it because you were involved in a legal battle in reference to people here in the city of Detroit and whether the validity of their voting, their decisions. How has that impacted you in terms of what you're doing here, in terms of politics? Has that had an impact on you in terms of how Black people view you?
It's really, when I look at it, the reason why I really focused on issues in Detroit, because I was here volunteering in the city, and the issues are statewide. It's not just in Detroit. It just happened to be this where I was particularly volunteering. But as we surveyed the entire state, there's no excuse for our voter registration database not to be accurate. It's no excuse for us to have dead people, non-existent people, people registered to vacant lots. There's no excuse for any of that. So I think one of the problems was the media really focused on, her claims about the corruption in election disenfranchised Black people. I think
Right.
That was just a spin in the narrative they put on it, because we've been complaining about the whole state. There are individuals registered to homes that they've never lived
But
in.
is that a small minority?
I don't think it's small, because it's coming from the Secretary of State. So when I ran for SOS, I had the conference calls with clerks, and they would remove or flag people for removal from the qualified voter file, which is our voter registration database, and those people will reappear. So this is not just in Detroit. This is happening statewide. And our elections, that's the only way we, the people, have control of our government. And we, the people, should have every right to scrutinize that process. So that's very important.
I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, you should be able to legally challenge all the things that we've had recount, like particularly in Georgia, where I can't remember how many times they recertified the vote. Let me ask you, play devil's advocate here a little bit. The Republicans were screaming about voter fraud, and you find irony now that Donald Trump is basically being criminally charged with being part of a voter fraud with fake delegates in different states around the country. How do you
Can you clarify? Are you saying that because of the electoral lawsuit that's somehow kind of the one?
No.
I was trying to clarify.
Well, what I'm saying is that the Republicans have been so concerned about voter fraud, and yet they're now being accused of being part of conspiracies in different states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, where there were quote fake delegates, where now they're accused of voter fraud. And
I don't really have a lot of comments on the electoral case, but I will say I do have concern, where, you had after the 2020 election, you had the Senate Oversight Committee, who was ran by Republicans. So again, this is part of the rift in the party, who asked that the Attorney General consider criminally investigating people who allege fraud in the election. So that's why I think we have to separate these cases. So the particulars of one case may not necessarily be the same in another. But what I am seeing is this type of intimidation from the Secretary of State, including Jocelyn Benson, who asked for citizens to report election misinformation. I'm very concerned when any government official asks people to report their neighbors to the government. That's we can criticize our election processes. So, I think the law has to be evaluated, and we have to make sure that everyone is following law, whether Republicans or Democrats. But I also think that we, the people, irrespective of political affiliation, need to know a lot more about our election processes, because our elections are overly complicated. They should not be that complicated. And so it disenfranchises citizens because we don't even know what we're looking at. So we have massive issues in our election system.
Do you think if former President Trump loses the election in November that he's going to accept the results? Or are we going to be hearing about how it was stolen over the next 4 years?
I think he would accept the results. I think more so than whether him or Kamala Harris should accept the results. I think we should look at the processes of our election. I think that we the citizens should always scrutinize our elections, and I think we should have a full audit after every election. One of the things the Secretary of State does, these risk-limited audits, and I encourage the viewers to look up what that is. It's really a ridiculous process. They simply identify a couple of ballots and inspect the ballots, and it doesn't really go over the process, even how from registration to to how they process each ballot, how are the machines working, how are the online it slipped my mind right now, but when you go into the polls, the e-poll book, that's right, is that all working properly? When they transfer the ballots, are that working properly? When they are at the absentee county boards, we have one in Oakland County where I live, is that being done properly? I think that's the bigger question for us. How was that procedure ran, irrespective of who wins? But what we don't want to see is a bunch of division amongst the American people afterwards. To your point, we don't want to see people fighting and arguing and feel there was injustice. We want to see that whoever wins, whether it's President Trump or Kamala Harris, of course, I'm rooting for President Trump, but irrespective of who wins, we want the American people to walk away and say it was a fair process and that person won fair.
So, do you think he would say that it's a fair process if he should not prevail? Because you said that you think he would be, because Adolph just asked you the question. My question is, what makes you think that he will accept the results, given how he's acted over the last 4+ years?
Well, I think it wasn't, I could say from things that I witnessed and what people witnessed around the state. You could think of the case of Antrim County in northern Michigan. I mean, that case is crazy. Or what I experienced with the local clerks sharing their concerns of the processes. Or now we have these early voting going on for 9 days, and there hasn't really been clarity on how do you even. I mean, I don't want to get into the minutia of it, but that process is highly questionable. So I think I can't say, well, he will accept the results if he won't. I think, how will the process be ran? Is Jocelyn Benson going to make sure we have a fair election? Is Jocelyn Benson not going to threaten citizens, and tell people to report their friends and neighbors if they have questions or scrutinize how she's running the elections? I think, to me, that's the bigger question. I have no idea what he's going to do or say, and I just think it all depends on how clean of election Jocelyn Benson chooses to run.
I think after this election that we really need to think about eliminating the Electoral College. Because that's been a pain in the ass. We need to go by who get the most votes in this country.
Well, I think one of the problems we have too is, I remember in the state of Arizona, they had passed a law that one had to prove their citizenship status in order to vote, and then the Biden DOJ sued Arizona. So when you have things like that going on, that causes me a lot of concern about a popular vote. When you have the current president wanting to sue a state for verifying the citizenship status of voters, like that makes no sense at all.
I just have a problem of a state like Iowa and New Hampshire having so much clout in electing presidents. I've been to those states, and they got New Hampshire got 2 people, Iowa got 4, and they don't look like America.
Yeah, I think Fighting the Evil made a great point. And it's my question. I'll just leave it with this question, and I'll be quiet. Are the Republicans making a mistake by being too associated with the former president? Does Mike Rogers have a better chance of winning if he distanced himself? Are the Republicans going to lose all across this country if President Trump loses? Is, I guess, my question. And is it a misstep to do that?
Well, I think it will be a horrible misstep for the Senate candidate to disassociate himself with the president. And I think people need to identify why does President Trump have a lot of support from even some unlikely allies. I think it all boils down to the economy. So I think at the end of the day, because I've talked to a lot of my Democrat friends and family members, and they go, yeah, I could afford things when he was president. So I think that those kitchen table issues, I think a lot of us who are into politics, we just look at all these different angles and all these little things that we care about. But at the end of the day, the grocery prices, the gas prices, that matters to people.
But that wasn't my question. My question was more, is Mike Rogers a better candidate if he steps away from Donald Trump? Because if Donald Trump wins Michigan, I don't think Mike Rogers wins Michigan.
I don't think that would help him at all. I think that would just, there's no benefit to separating himself from the presidential nominee. I just can't see a benefit of that at all.
We're gonna have you do your last question, then we're gonna wrap it up.
All right,
okay?
I was going to say, I might disagree with you, Jim, on that. I think if Trump wins Michigan, I think Mike Rogers will benefit. But I think it's been clear he did not endorse Trump in 2016 or 2020. I don't think he's a big fan of Trump's, but he realized if he wanted to win the primary, he needed the support of Trump, and I think that's why I endorsed him.
Mhm.
So, I don't think they're going to be doing a lot of hugging during the final stretch of this campaign. That's
We've had a wonderful, spirited conversation this Saturday. We got to wrap up. Want to thank you, Kristina,
Yes.
for coming. You're welcome to come anytime.
Thank you.
You know, we could text back and forth. Thank all of the viewers of Detroit in Black and White. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Allan, Teresa, Eric. Thank everybody for watching, and we are out.
all right.